Okay, so picking it up from when they're returning to Pune on the train that never made it to Bombay. Thus, after a horrendous 8-hour journey, they found themselves back in Pune. Their Bombay excursion was canceled and they went their separate ways. The railroad offered passengers the option of continuing on to Bombay via Dand and Manmad, but Baba was no longer in the mood to travel. Bailey and Ghani later conversed about the incident and were convinced that Baba had purposely planned the whole affair to demonstrate to them his spiritual power. Their faith in his omniscience became a strong conviction from that day onward. Another passenger on the train that day who did go on to Bombay was Abdul Karim Abdullah, later known as Ramju, because he was born in the month of Ramzan, according to the Islamic calendar. Ramju, 21, was a married cloth merchant in Pune and had met Baba briefly at a gathering at Munshiji's house. He was immediately attracted to Baba's living flame, and as he remarked, curious to know more about this Irani saint. Although their paths crossed several times in Pune, Ramju did not have another opportunity to be in Baba's close company for another 6 months. In mid-October 1920, Upasni Maharaj and his disciples traveled to Madhav Bagh, a suburb of Bombay, for Dasera. And we have a footnote. Dasera is a Hindu festival commemorating the victory of light over darkness, the triumph of Lord Ram over the demon king Ravana, recounted in the great Indian epic poem Ramayana.
They call it Diwali. They call it Dasara.
Dasara.
And Diwali.
No, it's Dasara.
The story goes that Ravana was a king who was devoted to his guru. One day, he asked his guru if he would achieve mukti in this lifetime. His guru said he would not unless he was killed by Ram. Therefore, Ravana plotted to anger Ram so he would fight him. Ravana abducted Sita and hid her. He then lied to Ram that he had seduced Sita, which angered Ram so much that he fought him to the death and killed him. A very brief summary of a long story. At Maharaj's invitation, the group was joined by Merwan Seth and a few of his Pune companions. During one program, the saint Gaj Maharaj came for Upasni's darshan and sang bhajans before him. Merwan Seth was seated beside Upasni. Since 1919, Gulmai had been a regular visitor to Upasni Maharaj's headquarters at Sikori, where she had met and talked with Meher Baba many times. She had also gone to Bombay for the Dasara program. Gulmai and her husband Kaikushru, 42, had two sons named Rustam.
Please, excuse me. If you don't mind, just start reading this paragraph and read a bit slower, if it's okay with you. Okay?
Yeah, let me just move
Sorry.
this.
Okay. Since 1919.
Since 1919, Gulmai had been a regular visitor to Upasni Maharaj's headquarters at Sikori, where she had met and talked with Meher Baba many times. She had also gone to Bombay for the Dasera program. Gulmai and her husband, Kaikushru, 42, had two sons named Rustam, 20, and Adi, 16, and two daughters, Paroja, 9, and Dali, 7. Adi had seen Baba at Sikori a few times when he had visited his mother there. Adi was studying at a Parsi boarding school at Pachgani. He initially went to Sikori only at his mother's insistence as her escort, but when he saw Maharaj, Adi spontaneously fell at his feet. Footnote. Gulmai's other children did not meet Meher Baba until he came to Ahmednagar later in 1921. Maharaj told them, "I have poured my entire spirituality into Merwan. You must stick with him through thick and thin. I am now an empty vessel." Gulmai's contact with Meher Baba increased during 1920 as she came to Sikori more frequently. In December 1920, Baba asked her if she would like to accompany him to Nasik. She agreed and returned to Ahmednagar to prepare for the trip. After a few days, Baba showed up at her home in Ahmednagar and was welcomed to stay the night. That evening, a singer was called to entertain him. It was during this occasion that Baba commented to Gulmai's husband, Kaikushru, that he would one day become Khan Sahib, an honorary title conferred by the British. Kaikushru took it as a joke. Baba repeated his prediction in all seriousness, and a year later the distinguished title was conferred upon Kaikushru. To Gulmai, Baba remarked, "You will be like Babajan." Gulmai doubted that she would ever be on the same level as Hazrat Babajan and said so. Turning to Babu Saikalwala, who was seated beside him, Baba pointed to Gulmai and repeated emphatically, "It is a fact. You are like Babajan." The next day, Baba left for Pune with Babu Saikalwala, but did not take Gulmai with him. Accompanied by Gustaji, his mother Memo, and one of her lady friends, Baba and his company traveled to Nasik via Bombay. In Nasik, Baba, Memo, and her companion stayed at Syed Saheb's family house. After several days, the ladies returned to Pune, while Baba and Gustaji traveled to Ahmednagar. They stayed at Gulmai's home, and on the next day, Baba asked her to accompany him to Sakori for a week until the Hindu festival of Sankrant. She agreed. At Sakori, Baba showed Gulmai the room that Upasni Maharaj had designated for him, saying she could keep her luggage there. The room had not been swept, and Gulmai cleaned it with his permission. Afterwards, she went to visit Durgabai. At dusk, Yeshwant Rao Nandram Borabki, 30, one of Upasni Maharaj's close circle members, arrived and stayed with Baba until he was to meet Upasni. On Friday, 14 January 1921, Sankrant was celebrated at Sakori. Upasni Maharaj's men and women disciples assembled and performed puja before him. Upasni remained in his usual gunny sack, while the women adored his body with their gold ornaments. Later, many poor people from the neighboring villages came to share in the feast, and Upasni distributed clothes to them. Afterwards, several of the poorest were bathed, including a few destitute lepers. Meher Baba helped Upasni bathe them. A Zoroastrian woman named Pilamai Hormuzd Irani of Karachi had come to Sakori for the first time for the celebration. Pilamai and Gulmai were distant relatives through marriage. A year or so previously in Bombay, Pilamai had met Gulmai, who was there visiting her brother. The two women became closer during this visit. Pilamai confided her problem with depression to Gulmai, who suggested she meet Upasni Maharaj, who had helped Gulmai overcome her own malady. Pilamai's depression centered on the untimely death of her youngest brother, Aspi. At her suggestion, Pilamai brought her children and stayed in Sakori for a month. When Pilamai first met Meher Baba, she recognized him as the person whose face she had seen a few years before in a portrait of Zoroaster. She had heard Zoroaster say, "I am God, and I will soon meet you." And here he was. Okay, let's read like a couple pages and pass. So go ahead, Rosalie. You want to take over?
One day, Pilamai and Gulmai were sitting near Meher Baba, and he asked Gulmai to sit closer, saying, "Sit here. Sit here, mother. I have something I want you to understand. Every Sadguru has a spiritual mother. Durgabai is Maharaj's. Narayan Maharaj and Tajuddin Baba have one also. Similarly, all perfect masters have spiritual sisters too. Likewise, you are my spiritual mother, and Pilamai is my spiritual sister. I have a past link with both of you through many lifetimes. I am telling you the fact that I am your son, and Pilamai, I am your brother. You are most fortunate. Taken aback, Gulmai, can you mute yourself, because I'm getting that sound maybe from your fan. Hello?
Everyone's muted but you. Go.
Okay, it's that funny little sound. Taken aback, Gulmai replied, I know nothing about spiritual facts. I am not equal to even the dust under your feet. I am not worthy of anything spiritual. I am a simple woman, quite tired of life, with the one desire to stay near Maharaj always, to serve him and die at his feet. Baba looked at her seriously and declared, I am Maharaj, and Maharaj is myself. Only the bodies are different. I am his son. Do as I tell you. Gulmai was ordered by Upasni to always bow to his wish, so she accepted what Meher Baba had declared. Later, he confided in her, you and your whole family are dear to me, and there is a certainty of our staying together in the future. Even if the whole world goes against me, you and your family won't leave me. Several days passed, and Meher Baba was sitting under the canopy of the Hindu temple in Sakori with Durgabai and Gulmai. Paintings of different Hindu gods have been hung inside the canopy. He began telling them the story of Sudama, a devotee of Krishna. When Baba finished that story, Gulmai asked for another, and Baba replied, how can I explain it, everything? Gulmai pleaded, Baba, you know everything. Baba smiled and then said, when one visits Bombay, one goes to some particular place. One does not see every nook and corner of the city. Why I don't explain everything is similar to this. After a week, her husband Kaikushru arrived to take Gulmai home. At noon, all gathered for lunch in Pilamai's room. Baba also came and sat down to eat. Gulmai remembered that, being Sunday, it was her one day per week to fast. She got up without eating. Baba remarked, never mind, have lunch. Because it was Upasni Maharaj's orders, she politely refused. She insisted that she should eat. Baba insisted that she should eat. The tussle reached Maharaj's ears, and he ordered Gulmai to eat. The incident served to demonstrate to Gulmai that it was Maharaj's wish that she defer to Meher Baba's wishes in all matters. After lunch, Baba took Kaikushru aside and began giving him spiritual explanations and telling stories about Maharaj. In the evening, Kaikushru and Gulmai returned to Ahmednagar. Two Irani sisters who also came into Baba's close orbit during 1921 were Frani Nauraj Driver, 47, known as Frani Masi, and Daulat Jahangir Irani, 45, known as Daulatmai. Frani Masi lived near Babajan and could see the ancient woman on the street from her apartment window. She was attracted to Babajan and became a daily visitor to her. It was in Babajan's presence that she first met Baba and was drawn to him also. Franny Masi told her sister about both Babajan and Meher Baba and took Dalit Mai to see Babajan one day. On another occasion, Franny Masi took Dalit Mai to meet Meher Baba at Sadashiv's house in Kasba Peth.
That's Mira's mother, Daulat Mai.
Right. A program of devotional songs was being held, and after it was over, Franny Masi introduced her sister to Baba. Upon meeting Dalit Mai, Baba inquired, "Is there something you wish to ask?" Dalit Mai could not think of anything. Later, Baba repeated, "Is there anything you wish to ask me?" Finally, she told him, "My daughter Parosha has been feeling ill and suffers from a loss of appetite." Sorry, from a loss of appetite. "What should I do for her?" Baba replied, "Take her to Udwada, where the fire of Zoroaster is kept burning in the temple, and afterwards she will become all right." After a few minutes, Baba again inquired, "Is there anything else you wish to ask?" Dalit Mai remembered a woman she knew who was still unmarried, though the woman was then almost 40 years old. She told Baba about her, and he answered, "Take her to Udwada also." Having faith in him, Dalit Mai followed Baba's instructions and took her daughter and the woman to Udwada. True to his words, her daughter recovered, but even more surprising, when they returned to Pune, the spinster was approached by a man who offered to marry her, and she accepted. From the first meeting, both sisters, Franny Masi and Dalit Mai, had tremendous love and faith in Meher Baba, and their connection was extremely significant. Dalit Mai, on Meher Baba's order, later maintained silence for many years, and her younger daughter, Mara, became his chief woman disciple. During June of 1921, Shireen Mai had a significant dream similar to the one she had dreamed when Mirwan was a baby. Later, narrating her dream, she said, "I was sitting on the doorstep of our house. Merab was sitting under a tree across the lane. Suddenly, I saw the delicate figure of a beautiful Hindu girl with her hair tied in plaits, 3 golden flowers pinned in it. The delicate figure wore jeweled necklaces and bracelets. A small boy was by her side. They emerged from the well in our courtyard and approached Merag with outstretched arms. Merag rose and stood before the girl. I came forward and asked the girl, 'Why are you here? What do you want? Who are you?' The girl answered, 'I am Paramatma. I want to take your son with me.'"
Paramatma is a Sanskrit word meaning the impersonal state of the infinite consciousness of God, whereas the perfect master or avatar represents the personal state of infinite consciousness.
I held Merag in my arms, saying, "I won't let my son leave me." Then Merag spoke, "Let me go. Don't hold me back. I want to go with her, mother." I held Merag tightly by the hand and ordered the girl to leave. Suddenly, the 2 figures jumped back into the well and disappeared. Memo awakened from the dream and called to Bobo. The dream had upset her, and she described it to her husband, who consoled her. Baba was sleeping in the next room. Baramji and Gustaji were also staying in the house that night. Baba awakened when Memo did, and after overhearing his mother narrate the dream to Bobo, he started laughing. He called Baramji and Gustaji and narrated Memo's dream to them. Then jokingly he said, Memo had this dream. Bad, bad, very bad. Memo overheard her son joking about her fears, and she became even more upset. Her feelings were hurt. She shouted at him, Merag, why do you laugh? Tell me, what does the dream mean? I know the meaning, he stated, and then repeated with amusement, it's bad, bad, very bad. Memo was annoyed by his remarks, but he refused to reveal the meaning of the dream. Paramatma was indeed calling him, and age would soon see how he joined her. Meanwhile, on 21st June 1921, wow, 2021, Sadashiv's wife, Gita, passed away, giving birth to a daughter. Baba was among those who attended the funeral. The bystanders at the ceremony were quite impressed at finding Muslims, Iranis, and Parsis in the Hindu funeral procession. This march demonstrated to the people of Pune that the spiritual master, Meher Baba, was above caste, creed, or religion, and that people of every community were included among this spiritual leader's followers.
Okay, Michal, you want to take over here?
Yes. But it was a thought that came to my mind because Memo had two dreams that goddesses are coming from the well to take him away. This well is really dangerous. All these gods coming to take him away. One day, during 1921, Dr. Ghani came to Pune to see Baba, who inquired, how is your dispensary doing? Ghani complained, despite my best efforts to obtain certain medicines from America, I have not received my order. This delay is a nuisance and I am wondering what to do about it. Write one more letter to the company in America, Baba suggested, but bring that letter to me first. Let me write the address on the envelope and we'll see what happens. Ghani complained but remarked, I have been trying to obtain these medicines for the past 2 years. The company does not even reply, so I doubt if one more letter will help. Baba replied, you will see. You'll receive the medicines on the day I set foot in Bombay, which I plan to do soon. Ghani wrote out the order. Baba then wrote the address on the envelope and Ghani mailed it that day. After some days, Baba decided to visit Bombay. Ghani was in Pune at that time and traveled back to Bombay with him and his companions. Baba Riley said to the group, is that how you say Riley? This word, yes? Riley?
Riley, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Said to the group, let's go see the great doctor's dispensary. Yeah. When they arrived, Ghani opened the door and noticed a letter in the mailbox. It was an invoice for the American company about the dispatch of the medicines he wanted. Discovering Baba's words to be coming true, Ghani again, profoundly impressed with Meher Baba's omniscience. Gulmai and her family were living in Parsi Dharamshala. Can you put it up, please? Yeah. Gulmai and her family were living in the Parsi Dharamshala in Shani Gali Lane, Ahmednagar. And during 1921, her husband Khan Saheb had completed construction of a new house nearby that he named Sarosh Manzil. Gulmai desired that the Pasni Maharaj come and inaugurate the house before they moved in. But her Orthodox relatives were averse to the idea of a Maharaj, a Hindu, opening the house. Hence, the ceremony was performed according to the Zoroastrian religion. A local Mohammedan saint named Gilori Shah was also invited to the inauguration, and the poor were fed. All of their furniture was shifted there, but Gulmai was adamant that she would not stay in the new house until Upasni Maharaj himself came and performed the housewarming ceremony. Several months passed, but when Gulmai went to Sakori and invited Upasni Maharaj, he instructed, "Make a seat for me and place my photograph on it. This will be tantamount to my coming in person." Gulmai was not satisfied and requested that Maharaj come himself. The Sadguru refused, but when her husband Khan Saheb himself came to Sakori and entreated Maharaj to come, he relented. Baba and Gustaji were in Sakori at the time. 3 days later, Maharaj sent word with Gustaji that he intended to come in 2 weeks. "Before I come," he ordered, "keep a room clean, put a pot of fresh water there, and place a coconut on it. Keep a light burning inside at all times. The water should be changed daily." Gulmai did as instructed. Gustaji came 2 days in advance of the opening ceremony to instruct and assist her in preparing for Upasni Maharaj's arti and puja. A car was hired to bring Maharaj. Rustum and Adi drove it to Sakori. Durgabai accompanied Maharaj. The automobile stopped in front of the Irani new house, and Upasni descended. He was garlanded with flowers, offered a coconut, and welcomed inside. Everyone present took his darshan. Only Khan Saheb's brother-in-law, Sarosh's father, remained staunchly opposed and refused to enter the house. Maharaj inspected every room of Sarosh Manzil and selected the room downstairs where they had kept the water pot and a small kerosene lamp. A new seat had been prepared there for the master, and he was requested to occupy it. He declined and asked for some gunny sacks. The only sackcloth in the house was some empty discarded cement bags. This was brought, and Upasni sat on it in a corner. Baba came from Pune the following day and occupied a small room at the top of the house on the 3rd floor, which overlooked the city. As Maharaj himself was staying downstairs, Baba did not allow any of his followers to sleep upstairs, so they were accommodated at the Parsi Dharamshala next door. The Irani family was wealthy, and the housewarming ceremony was elaborately planned. Many from the town were invited. Before the ceremony took place on Tuesday, 26 July 1921, the Orthodox Zoroastrians and some of Gulmai's own relatives again strongly objected to a Hindu guru cutting the welcome ribbon. Gulmai, however, refused to relent and insisted Upasni Maharaj be given the honor. The ceremony proceeded as Gulmai had planned. Some of Maharaj's devotees had come from Pune. His Hindu devotees were accommodated in a Hindu neighbor's home where Maharaj had his meals with Durgabai. The others ate with Khan Saheb and his family. Maharaj and Baba stayed at Sarosh Manzil for 7 days as honored guests of the family.
Gulmai had invited Maharaj to stay for a month, but because of the severe opposition from her joint family, she was only able to accommodate him for a week.
Okay. Baba guided them in the performance of Upasni's arati in the morning and evening. The entire week resembled a joyous wedding occasion. Bhajans were sung nightly. Gulmai's son Adi would play the harmonium, and Baba would accompany him on the dolak and sing in a melodious voice. Go and give tea to Merwan, Upasni would tell Gulmai during programs. His throat must have become sore from singing. Maharaj was most particular about his favorite disciple. See, Merwan never eats, he remarked to Gulmai one day. A little while ago, he took a cold bath, but he puts on the same dirty clothes. Go give him some of Rustam's clothes. She did so, but Baba refused them. During this time, Adi fell seriously ill with high fever. Maharaj treated Adi with quinine tablets, which he took several times a day. Baba would also visit Adi every day and inquire about his health. Then he would personally give Adi tea or water and help him walk back and forth in the room. Adi recovered more quickly than expected and never forgot the loving care that Baba expressed to him at that time. He thought, my mother's or father's love is like a small pond when compared to Meher Baba's, which is like an ocean. It is better I seek the love of the ocean. Adi was attending Deccan College in Pune, and Baba promised he would arrange for better meals from one of his followers. Adi, being especially fond of good food, was further touched by Baba's consideration, and he was drawn closer to Meher Baba's first circle of contacts. One day, Baba walked alone with Adi behind the house, where Baba sat on a stone near a well. There he asked Adi, do you know who I am? I know that you are the chief disciple of Upasni Maharaj, Adi replied. More than that, I do not know. I shall not tell you who I am today, Baba stated, but you will definitely come to know, and you will see that your name is made known all over the world. Your future has deep significance in my work. With my love and with your obedience of my instructions, you will prove to be a fit instrument for my work. Later, Baba added, I will make you like Vivekananda.
Swami Vivekananda was the chief disciple of the perfect master Ramakrishna of Calcutta and was a great orator. Adi Sr. became Meher Baba's public secretary and traveled with him to different parts of the world during the 1930s and 1950s.
And he became a great orator because Baba told him speak. And Adi said, no, I don't know how to speak. And he said, no, I'm telling you, you speak. I will come through you. And he became a great orator. Adi was overcome with joy and began thinking of joining Baba permanently. One day, during the week-long celebration, Upasni Maharaj requested that Gulmai and Khan Saheb take him to Bapu Saheb Wali's tomb in Ahmednagar.
Footnote says Bapu Saheb was also known as Bapu Shah Jindawali and Bapu Fazal Shah. He died on 18 July 1912.
The shrine was nearby, and Maharaj went there with some of the guests.
Okay, thank you. Michal Mahu, you want to take over? You got to unmute.
Okay, thank you. Bapu Sahib was a Mohammedan holy man who was revered in Ahmednagar and had been closely connected with Khan Sahib's father. Unknown to most people, but known to Upasni Maharaj, Bapu Sahib was actually a God-realized Majzub. When Khan Sahib's father died, Bapu Sahib came to the family's house to view the body. At one point, the God-conscious man demanded that some of his devotees' clothes be handed over to him, to which the family consented. On this occasion, Gulmai wished to offer Maharaj a small amount of money she had saved from her household budget. She placed the pact at Maharaj's feet. He did not touch it, but instead beckoned for Baba and told Gulmai, "This is my boy, Merwan. He is very good. He looks after my needs. You may give the money to him, and he will do what is needed with it." So Gulmai gave Baba the packet. Afterwards, Baba met in private with Gulmai and Khan Sahib and told them, "Whatever Maharaj does is for the ultimate good. He has been perfected. He has the consciousness of God. Maharaj's mind is universal. You must try to help his work. You have come in his contact due to your past connections with him. You have been to Sakori. There is no lodging in the village. Those who go there find it difficult to stay. There is a need for a few rooms to be constructed for people to take rest, if the money can somehow be raised." Gulmai asked how much money, and Baba replied, 2, maybe 4,000 rupees. Gulmai discussed the matter with her husband, and Khan Sahib agreed to help. Another day, Baba called Gulmai and her husband to Upasni Maharaj's room, where he suggested that in honor of the master, a day he set aside to celebrate. The idea was discussed, and Baba suggested that it be on Maharaj's birthday in May at Sakori. I will let you know how much money to collect," Baba said, "and everything will be done by you." Before leaving on the 8th day, Upasni Maharaj went around the old and new house in each and every room and instructed Gulmai to sprinkle water from the pot placed in his room in both houses. He then said, "Place the pictures of all gods in this Maharaj's room. Do not place anything else there. Keep it as a prayer room." The car arrived. All present took Maharaj's darshan as the car was loaded. Gulmai began wrapped up the Ghani sacks which Maharaj had sat on, but he told her to keep them. Upasni Maharaj, Durgabai, Baba, Khan Sahib, Gulmai, and her sister Sunmasi got into the car. The rest followed by train. On the way, when someone mentioned those going by train, Maharaj made a significant pronouncement. "The Sadguru is like the engine," he remarked. "If the compartments are joined to him, he takes them to the destination desired. Similarly, join your compartments to Merwan, and he will carry them to their respective spiritual stations." Everything that happens, he referred them to Baba. It was just keep on directing. He added, "When I provide Merwan with the engine, your prophet Zoroaster will manifest."
Upazni Maharaj always referred to Meher Baba as Merwan.
Hmm. Halfway to Sakuri, the car got a flat tire. Everyone got down and sat under a tree while it was being repaired. After reaching Sakuri, Khan Sahib wished to return to Ahmednagar immediately, but it rained heavily. They could not return as the roads were flooded. Party was held in the evening. Baba sang and played the drum. Gulmai was tired and lay down in a corner near the temple. Khan Sahib and Baba sat talking. Seeing her asleep, Baba took a blanket and spread it over her. Arti was performed as usual that evening, and Baba sang and accompanied himself on the drum. The next day, Durgabai prepared lunch for them before those from Ahmednagar returned home. Shortly after Baba returned to Pune from Ahmednagar, Ghani brought the news that Munshiji had been transferred to Bombay and asked Baba where the group should hold their meetings now. Baba replied, "It is all prearranged from the beginning. After some time, the center of my activities will shift to Bombay." The prohibition movement had started in India and protests against liquor and toddy shops arose. The liquor shops were picketed and business drastically fell off. On this pretext, Baba told his parents, "I am going to Sakuri to see Upasni Maharaj and request him to put a stop to this prohibition. I will come back in about a week." With these words, Baba left Pune alone. He did not return for 6 months. During this period with Maharaj at Sakuri, Meher Baba completely regained normal human consciousness of the world to begin his divine mission as the avatar of the age. To understand that Merwan had undergone during the past 8 years is to understand the process of realization and perfection. After Baba Jan's kiss in January 1914, Merwan had attained God consciousness. His inner state was that of a majzub, one drowned in infinity. For almost 2 years, creation had not existed for him, neither in his individual mind nor in any manner or form whatsoever. Merwan's consciousness was divine. It was infinite, perfect, but he had no mastery of all knowledge, all power, and all bliss. Merwan was conscious of infinite light and was light itself, but was totally unconscious of its shadow, which is the creation, his own self and the world. As the avatar, God had descended into the body of Merwan Irani from his beyond state of God, the Absolute. Merwan never passed through the process of evolution, reincarnation, and involution prior to his birth. The 5 perfect masters of the age brought him down into the form of Merwan from his formless state of God. But from 1894 to 1914, the five perfect masters veiled him from his own divinity. Baba Jan's gentle kiss tore away that protective veil of Vijnani sanskaras, and within minutes he became once more infinitely aware of his real self as eternal existence. Excuse me.
Such magical reading. Wow. No, however, after.
Let me
She
do
stopped
from
up.
there, however. However, after Baba Jan's kiss, simultaneously with the attainment of divine consciousness, Merwan lost every tinge of normal human consciousness. He had a human body that acted automatically, but he had no awareness of that body. He was only conscious of being infinite knowledge, infinite power, and infinite bliss. All five perfect masters played a direct or indirect role in bringing the avatar into creation, forming a veil of Vijnani sanskaras, then revealing his God consciousness and bringing him back down to function perfectly on all planes and on all levels of consciousness. It was through Baba Jan that Merwan attained infinite bliss. Through Sai Baba that he attained infinite power. And through Upasni Maharaj that he attained infinite knowledge. Narayan Maharaj and Tajuddin Baba played direct roles in bringing him into creation also, but indirect roles in bringing him down after he was God realized. Upasni Maharaj played the most direct role when Maharaj struck Merwan with the stone at their initial encounter. It was the first time in nearly 2 years that he experienced an iota of gross consciousness. It was during the subsequent 7-year contact with Upasni Maharaj that Merwan fully regained his lost individual human consciousness, while simultaneously being God conscious.
Okay, thank you. Um, would Rainey or Elizabeth like to read? They may not be at their. Oh, there's Rainey.
Hi, yes, I can read for a little minute. I've
Go right ahead,
done
starting
all
at
my
the.
duties. uh, a worldly person from there, or
Yes.
a worldly person has consciousness of only the gross world and knows nothing but God consciousness. Such a person does not have even a shadow of an idea of the reality of God. A Masjub is fully conscious of divinity but unconscious of the world. A spiritually advanced person on one of the three planes of the subtle world knows of the powers of God, and one on the fourth plane, Kubur, knows the full infinite power of God. An advanced Wali on the fifth plane of the mental world knows the infinite mind of God, while a peer, a saint, on the sixth plane of the mental world sees the infinite existence of God. Only a perfect soul, Shivatma, on the seventh plane really knows God because he is fully, infinitely conscious of actually being God himself. Once God realization is attained, it becomes and remains everlasting. God consciousness is never affected by anything in the three spheres or by any circumstances. It is continually experienced as an infinite, self-contained phenomenon within its own infinity. However, in order for a person with God consciousness to do universal work in the world, normal consciousness is required, and such is the functioning state of the perfect masters and the avatar. To regain gross consciousness, 7 stages have to be passed through as they descend through the 7 planes. A description in detail of each stage is not possible. To regain normal human consciousness is to come down from the height of divinity, from infinity itself, diving to the bottom of the ocean of divine life to obtain the pearl and to resurface to show the pearl to others comprises the lives of the perfect masters. But the avatar does not have to dive to the depths of the ocean because he eternally possesses the pearl of divine life. Yet to show it to the world, Meherwan had to regain his worldly awareness to function as Avatar Meher Baba, side by side with the divine consciousness of unity. He had to have the consciousness of duality. Just have to turn the kettle off. Sorry.
Baba sounds tea girl.
Yes, the kettle.
Yeah.
Whistling away. The difference in coming down. Oh, where am I? Is that where I am at the top of the page? Yes.
Yes.
Sorry. Kettle consciousness. The difference in coming down through the 7 planes between the perfect masters and the avatar is that when a perfect master comes down, he becomes conscious of everything and everyone in creation. He becomes one with everything and everyone. But he does not become those very things and beings, whereas the avatar actually becomes everything and everyone. And he alone suffers everything that everyone suffers. Therefore, in his coming down, there is infinite agony. For example, when the children threw stones at Tajuddin Baba, although they appeared to have hurt him, he never felt the pain. Tajuddin only acted as if he had felt the pain. Whereas when Meherwan was hit on the forehead by the stone thrown by Upasni Maharaj, he actually felt the pain of the stone striking his flesh. From 1915 through 1921, while regaining his gross consciousness in Pune, Meherwan very slowly became aware of his immediate surroundings as his awareness of the world increased. He experienced all things coming out of his being, emerging from his innermost being. He was God conscious, and as a human being, he would be active, but his actions were automatic with premeditation. His human acts were similar to that of a mechanical soldier that functions when wound up and started. From 1915, when he would do a certain action, he would do the same thing continuously until he was stopped by someone. For example, Yeshwant Rao, Upasni Maharaj's close disciple, was given the order during Meher Baba's 6-month stay at Sakori to prepare pan for Baba every night. Another disciple of Upasni Maharaj named Trimbak was given the same duty during the day. Once Baba started chewing pan, he would do it continuously, asking for one pan after another. Both Yeshwant Rao and Trimbak had to work like a machine on an assembly line to keep up with Baba's requests. He would consume hundreds of the pan leaves at a time. Baba would chew more pan at night than during the day. Once Yeshwant became so exhausted preparing the leaves that he collapsed and fell asleep for a few minutes. Upasni happened to come by and caught him resting, kicking him awake. Maharaj scolded, "Don't you ever let me catch you asleep again. Consider it your sacred duty to prepare pan for Mewan. Have you any idea how fortunate you are to serve Mewan? In the future, you'd better not be so negligent." During one stage of his coming down, Baba felt that he was all alone in the universe. He experienced the entire universe existing for him alone, and whatever happened in the universe happened solely for him. His experience was not just that he felt it to be so, but he actually saw it to be so. For instance, if he saw a man walking, eating, or talking, he saw himself and knew that it was he who was eating and talking. In short, it is impossible to describe the experiences of the descent of one who is God realized and emerges back into the universal creation. What is essential is to comprehend that God consciousness is totally separate from and transcendent of all the varied aspects of consciousness, mental, subtle, or gross. God realization is the experience of the very consciousness of God and of Him alone. It is absolute existence, infinite and eternal, because, in fact, nothing exists besides itself. Nothing exists besides it. Meher Baba's experience during the stages of his descent, that he alone as God existed, that the universe was only functioning for him alone, that everything existed because of him, that he was everything, that he was everyone, that he was responsible for everything and everyone, that by his very existence he was meant to help everything and everyone, were distinct stages of higher consciousness involved with his descent through the 7 planes into the gross world. He was then, over a period of 7 years, gradually becoming more and more conscious of the world and of the purpose of his actual being and identity, his avatarhood. In divine consciousness, there is absolutely nothing that pertains to the universe. There is no consciousness of the existence of the universe or of anything or anyone else. To the avatar or perfect master, even after completely recovering normal consciousness, the whole universe, which he sees and of which he is in charge, looks like a mere shadow.
Okay, thank you, Rainey. Elizabeth, are you able to read? Would you like to? Or maybe you're not by your desk there. Okay.
Hello?
Oh, there you go.
Talking to me?
Yeah, I was wondering if you wanted to read.
Sure. Let me just reorient myself. Whoops. Trying to get my video on. Okay. I have been half listening. I'm sorry. I was doing stuff too. 246. Merwan is born. During another stage of his regaining worldly consciousness, Meher Baba began experiencing the thoughts of all human beings in the universe. The individual thoughts of those persons in the gross world, irrespective of whether they were near or far, would instantaneously pour into his universal mind at the moment they were created. Thought. The numerous thought waves were so forceful and so tremendously rapid, it is impossible for us to have an idea of their effect. The very process of infinite thinking was rushing through Baba's individual mind. He could withstand it only because his mind had become universal.
And the footnote says the process of infinite thinking is explained in Balkachuri, The Nothing and the Everything, page 162 to 167.
Oh, okay. I'll have to go back and read that. For instance, a person's thoughts in America, the moment they were formed, would rush into Meher Baba's universal mind, Thus, all the thought waves of all humanity on earth would stream into and permeate Meher Baba's universal mind in a few minutes. At the beginning of this particular stage of Baba's coming down, when his universal mind was starting to function, he was sitting alone by a canal in Sakori. Within a few minutes, the force of the thoughts of thousands and thousands of persons on earth entered his universal mind. The impact of it was so tremendous, he became uneasy and restless. And in an attempt to break the shock, he submerged his head underwater in the canal until his individual mind found relief. I can understand that. During another stage of his coming down at Sakori, Baba had another experience which he later described. I experienced circles and circles of light coming out of my heart. These were countless circles within circles. All the infinite number of universes were coming out of me, each containing an infinite number of planets, moons, and suns. Baba's physical labor in the toddy shop at Kasbah Peth helped him tremendously in the process of coming down. While he labored in the toddy shop, he was near the final stage of regaining worldly consciousness. During this stage, he felt the impulse to work continuously and exert himself physically. This impulse to be physically active came from Upasni Maharaj, for Upasni was directing Meher Baba's descent. It seems that this stage of regaining normal human consciousness required the accomplishment of deeds of the purest virtue done with the deepest humility. To attain this pure humility, Baba worked like a common laborer in the toddy shop for 3 years. In spite of the fact that he was actually a divine man with full divine consciousness of infinite power, knowledge, and bliss. During this phase, Baba would clean the toilets, sweep the shop floors and surrounding areas, wash the dirty glasses, cups, and dishes of the customers, and do all kinds of menial tasks. On one occasion, Baramji recounted, once Mirwan Seth started filling empty bottles with toddy. He would continue doing the task for hours until every bottle was filled. Though this task was squalid, he would show an interest in doing it. The majority of the customers were poor, crude people. Most were illiterate, attired in dirty clothes, and used obscene language to express themselves. They would spit on the floor of the shop wherever they were sitting, and Mirwan would mop the floors clean every day. Most were alcoholics, and when drunk, they would find comfort lying on the floor in the street. Mirwan, however, would serve these drunkards and treat them kindly and even lovingly. The toddy shop was, in fact, a front, which enabled Meher Baba to do humble, lowly physical labor. No sooner was its purpose served than the prohibition protests started in Pune. The liquor and toddy shops were picketed and people protested against alcohol in any form. In the universe, the number of worlds that exist is so great that it is beyond the imagination of the human mind. For a man who is God realized, it is possible, however, to see and count not only the 18,000 planets with human life, but also the thousands and thousands of other planets in different evolving stages. One night in Sakori, during 1921, while Baba was alone with Upasni Maharaj, the Sadhguru remarked, with my gross eyes, I can count all the planets in all the universes. This requires the concentration of my mind on one point. Maharaj started concentrating and counted universe after universe. However, the actual velocity of the universes in motion is at such an inexpressible speed that To count their number with one's gross eyes is overwhelming to the limited human mind. As Upasani continued counting, within a short period, Baba said, Maharaj, stop counting. Had he not stopped Maharaj at this moment, the Sadguru would have dropped his body within a few moments. Then Baba said, I shall try to count the planets in the universe. As he was counting the different planets, Maharaj shortly thereafter prevented him from counting, or else Baba too would have dropped his body then. Why
Okay.
would they drop their body if they counted the universes? Does anybody know?
No,
Was it?
no, it's a remain as mystery.
Yeah, it was never explained.
Uh,
All right, I will take it back from the top. I'll take over here. When the universes are so numerous, millions and millions, how can one continue observing them with his gross eyes? Who can conclude what reason or purpose lay behind this cosmic game between these two perfect ones? Upasni Maharaj once commented that he saw everything in its infinite expanse in one view, while Meher Baba commented that he saw everything in its expanse, but in panoramic detail. Meanwhile, during Baba's long stay at Sakori, Memo was becoming terribly upset that her son had not returned to Pune. She went to Babajan and asked when her son would come home. Babajan murmured, My beloved son, my son. Memo shouted at her, He is not your son, he is my son. Babajan, From where did you bring him? Babajan asked. He belongs to the whole world, not to you. Again she murmured, Ah, mera pyara beta. Memo
Where did
sensed
you bring him? That's fun.
Memo sensed it was hopeless to try to get any definite answer from Babajan, and she returned home frustrated. Later, she requested her mother, Golandun, and her niece, Naja, to try to persuade Babajan to call Merwan back to Pune. However, as before, Babajan shifted the conversation with Golandun to their homeland and to Persian poetry. The two Persian ladies began reminiscing, laughing, and crying together, like the closest of friends, and Golandun forgot to ask Babajan to send for Merwan. Golandun was sent several times to Babajan at Memo's insistence. Once, when Golandun remembered to ask, Babajan replied, My beloved son belongs to the world. He will shake the world to its foundation one day. Why do you worry about him? He is now out of your hands. Her remarks touched Golandun, but they did not console Memo. Finally, Memo became so distressed that she went to Sakori to confront Upasni Maharaj. Memo had been to Sakori a few times before. Whenever Merwan had gone there, she would inevitably find out and arrive later, hoping to persuade him to let her take him back. Usually Maharaj would meet her as she entered Sakori, and he too would shift the conversation to some other topic so that she would forget to inquire about Merwan. Maharaj's trick would dawn on her only when she was on her way back to Pune in the train. Memo would curse, That old man has fooled me again. On this occasion, Memo was determined not to fall for one of Upasni Maharaj's tricks. As she and her son, Behram, who had accompanied her, entered his compound, Maharaj greeted her warmly. Welcome, mother, welcome. Memo was irritated by his comment and asked, How could I be your mother when you are so old? You are the mother of the entire universe, dear woman, replied Upasni Maharaj. Memo sensed he was up to some trickery and said, I won't be deceived by compliments. I am not here to be flattered by you. Show me where my son is. I have come for him. Maharaj gently said, Mother, first sit a while with me. Then he sent for Durgabai, telling her, Cook something special for Merwan's mother. Maharaj began to massage her feet. Memo, meanwhile, had forgotten to garland Upasni, so she unwrapped the flowers she had brought for him. Upasni remarked, What a lovely garland of shoes you have brought. What? Exclaimed Memo. What do you mean by that? I have carried these flowers with me all the way from Pune just for you. And yes, yes, I know what you were thinking, Upasni interrupted. How you would fight with me when you got here. You were abusing me the entire way. Memo was taken aback and silently acknowledged the truth of his words. But she sensed he was trying to outwit her again, and she said, "Now, Maharaj, don't get me sidetracked. I have come to speak with my son. Where is he?" Upasni gently replied, "He is somewhere around. I don't know why he stays here. Your son seems mentally unbalanced. I don't know what to do about him. I myself don't force him to stay. I have even beat him with a stick to chase him away, but he will not go. What am I to do with him? Mother, what are you going to do when you take him home? Do you think it will help him?" Memo replied, "Yes, it will help him. I shall arrange his marriage as soon as we get back to Pune." "That is a good idea," replied Maharaj. Then added, "Mother, do one thing first. When you find a nice girl for Merwan, find another girl for me. Then we can both come and with you to be married." Memo was shocked by Upasi's request and replied, "Who will give his daughter to an old man like you?"
She was
But,
a true lioness. She was a true lioness. To go to these two perfect masters and shout at them like that, she was wow.
but when I am your son, how can I be unsuitable? Maharaj asked. This irritated Memo and she insisted, "Stop teasing me and call Merwan now." Indicating Gulmai, who was nearby, Upasi said, "This is Gulbai, Maharaj's name for Gulmai, from Abhinagar. She is also a Zoroastrian. Make friends with her and cool your temper. Later, when you see Merwan, don't pester the boy with questions. Talk with him cheerfully, then depart. Dear lady, you are fortunate to have him as your son, and it is because of your good past lives. What can I do about him? You must encourage him to follow the spiritual path. Don't throw him into hell, worldly life. He will get married one day." Upon hearing this, and after talking with Gulmai, Memo was somewhat pacified. Pasni, meanwhile, kept shifting the conversation and kept Memo occupied until Durgabai brought lunch. While Memo and Gulmai were eating together, Upasni suddenly interrupted them and exclaimed, "Oh, how late it is! Hurry, mother, or you will miss the train." Memo had an obsession about being on time, forgot about Merwan in her haste to return to the railway station by Tonga. She left Merwan in Sakori again. Only after she was back on the train headed for Pune did she remember that she had missed seeing Merwan again. But it was too late to get off. She looked at Behram and explained, "That old man has deceived me again." After some time, Memo could not control her distress, and she also went to Keggaon to plead with Narayan Maharaj about Merwan. On this occasion, Narayan received her with great respect and told her, "You are very, very fortunate. Your son is Jagat, the Lord of the universe, and you yourself will be worshipped in times to come as the mother of the entire universe. Have patience. Everything will soon be all right. You will see. One day you will know who your son really is." Memo was comforted by Narayan's gentle manner. However, she was not fully consoled, nor did she understand the Sadguru's remarks. Memo could not bear to be separated from Merwan much longer. She was still in Sakori and would not come home to visit, nor would he. He was still in Sakori and would not come home to visit, nor would he write. It is difficult for Memo to bear the ridicule of the local Zoroastrian community. It was also difficult of the local Zoroastrian community. Some Zoroastrians in Pune would mock her son's spiritual tendencies, telling her, "Marwan will run away to the Himalayas and become a naked sadhu. You better do something to put a stop to all this nonsense. Why does he run after that old Muslim woman, Babajan, and that Hindu saint in Sakori?" Okay. Rosalie, you still here? There
Yeah.
we go. Okay, take over, please.
Okay. From thus memo.
Yeah.
Thus Thus, Memo would become deeply disturbed about her son's situation and feel terrible anxiety about Merwan's future. She would convey her fears to her husband, but Bobo was resigned that his son belonged to God. It was difficult for Memo to tolerate her husband's resignation, for she wanted Merwan near her despite Merwan's adamant refusal to agree to marriage, settling down and raising a family. While Baba was away in Socorro, Baba's brother Baram would light a prayer lamp in Baba's room and always keep the room clean. Baba had instructed him to garland each of the 5 perfect masters' photograph every Thursday. That's Guru Day, which he did for the rest of his life. Baram and Jal had both accepted their brother as someone spiritually great, though their brother Jamshed was the first among the children to have full conviction of Baba's divinity. Jamshed was also the first to worship Baba's photograph, which he kept in a special place in the house. Sometimes Baba too would bow to his own photograph there. Memo continued to miss her son terribly. She could not tolerate being separated from him any longer. A week after the encounter with Upasni Maharaj, Memo went to Socorro again, more determined than ever. She confronted Maharaj and railed, "Why don't you give me my son back? You have taken my son away, now send him back." "I am not holding Merwan prisoner here," Maharaj stated. "You can take him. I have not held Merwan captive here. I have not chained him up somewhere." Memo was irritated. "You know full well that Merwan won't come home unless you order him to do so." Upasni replied, "I am not going to order him to do that. It is up to him to decide." Turning and glancing at Memo's son Adi, who had accompanied her, Upasni continued, "I'll tell you what I will do. Do this for me. I'll order Merwan to go back with you, but you will have to leave this son of yours here with me." Memo became incensed. "What? How dare you? You have swallowed up one son and now you want to swallow another one? Call Merwan this instant." Upasni replied, "Please calm yourself, dear lady." He bowed to her feet in respect, then called for Merwan. Merwan arrived, looking dazed. Memo eyed him closely. He was unshaven and his clothes were dirty and torn. Shireen Mai had brought him clean clothes, but he refused to wear them. Maharaj spoke to him. "Merwan, your mother has come back again. She wants you to go home and get married. Every time your mother comes back, she is angry and fights with me. I am fed up with her abuses. Now go back with her." Then Upasni smiled and said, "Go back with her, get married, have children, and she will be happy. Become a thief, speak lies, steal from anyone. Go away from here. Then your mother will be happy, but you will end up in hell." "Don't joke about this with me," cried Memo. "I am serious. I want my son back." Baba had been standing beside Maharaj. Then he sat beside him. He had been smiling, but now appeared sad. Durgabai brought refreshments, and Memo and Adi went outside to eat and rest under a tree with her. Durgabai told Memo, "What can we do? Merwan does not want to leave Maharaj." Maharaj gave him a small room without windows. It is dark and empty. Maharaj gives him no comforts, but still your son wants to stay near him. I cannot explain it. He loves Maharaj and likes it here. Memo started weeping and pleaded with Durgabai. "I don't understand it. Why doesn't Maharaj give me back my son? Why doesn't Merwan want to come home? Why does Maharaj wish me so much grief?" With these words, Durgabai also wept. Memo went back inside where Upasni Maharaj and her son were seated. Upasni said, "Your son does not want to go home. He does not want to get married, and he does not want children. Forget about your ideas and go back home. He wants to stay here with me." Upasni embraced Memo and gently said, "I bow to your love for Merwan." Memo left quite unconsoled. When Memo arrived home, she did not speak to anyone, but went to her room and wept bitterly. She was reconciled to the fact that she had lost her son, her favorite son. Bobo failed in his attempts to console her, and she wept for days. Her heart and spirit were broken.
Okay, we're a little past the hour, and I think this is a good spot to stop because this part of the story goes on for another page or so.
Oh my God.
We'll pick it up at the very bottom of this page next week, which is 252.
Okay.
Wow, what a story, Emily.
Yeah.
What a
Right.
lady, what a lady. She went fighting through the two perfect masters like that, like a lioness on her son. Wow. And she
Was
was
something.
broken. It is something. She is a very strong lady. Wow. She loved him so much. She couldn't part from him. But she didn't part from him because when he became God realized when she accepted it, she came to the ashram all the time.
Avatar has to suffer.
Wow. What a lady. I really like that
Yeah, I
lady.
mean, he was suffering what she was suffering.